What a game. What a win for Duke. Talk about survive and advance. I mean, for the first half, for the way the first half to go, you start off with Duke just couldn't hit a shot, and they start off the game 0 for 13 from 3. And you go from there to Malik Brown picking up an injury early on. And not early on. At about, I think it was, let me check my notes here. About 7 minutes to go in the first half. He picks up an injury. And then, Duke, after that, it seemed like they started to get a little bit of momentum. And then Cooper goes down. And for that to happen so quickly after they started to build a little bit of momentum, it seemed to it took the life out of the crowd for certain. And then a funny thing started to happen towards the end of that first half. Duke started to find a little bit of rhythm towards the end of that half. And it was led by Gangba and Evans, who were able to just make some key contributions at the end of the half there to get Duke down to a 5-point deficit. Before halftime, it was 31-26 Georgia Tech. And I got to give a lot of credit to Georgia Tech for the way that they started this game. They had a good game plan, I thought, by Coach Stoudemire, in terms of they did a good job of making the game played at a slower pace. And Duke they start off slow, with the 3-point shot. I mean, really slow. Obviously, 0 for 13. They had, I thought, early a number of good looks that they didn't make. And then as the half went on, there was some shots that I thought were maybe a little bit forced. But then you get to the start of the second half, and this team, I wrote down, it would be a hell of a win if Duke was able to pull this one off with losing Malik Brown, then losing Cooper Flagg. And obviously this was the first game without assistant coach Jay Lucas. Down by 5 at the half was a great place to be based off of everything that happened at the end throughout the first half. Just not being able to hit a shot, losing two of your, arguably, I don't even know if this is arguable, their two best defenders in Brown and Flagg. And you start off the second half down by 5, and it starts off with Amal block. And he was awesome today, especially defensively. Gillis gets a good look from 3. It doesn't go down. Malawach blocks another shot to start the second half. And then Khan hits his first of I don't know how many big shots that he had in the second half. He knocked down a 3. And then Duke got a bucket to tie it at 31 apiece. And Gillis got another shot from 3, which he couldn't connect on. And Sion James, who didn't have a ton of points, we'll go to the stats in a little bit here, but I felt like every time he scored, it was an important, timely bucket. And he hits a big 3 to give Duke the lead at 34-31. And Duke never gave the lead back to Georgia Tech in this game. They just... Now, that's not to say this game didn't get close, and it wasn't close throughout the end of this game. It was certainly a very close game throughout the remainder. Gillis, it was Gillis, Khan Knipple, Sion James, Proctor, and Malawach who started the half, and they did a great job. They got the lead to 36-31, and Georgia Tech was forced to call a timeout. Proctor, after the timeout, steals it and gets a breakaway dunk, and then it's 38-31, and I think it goes to the under-16 TV timeout there. And Duke has some momentum. Georgia Tech goes on a mini 4-0 run, and then Evans hits his first three of the second half. He was great today. And this, let's get to it right now. This a lot of teams, forget this Duke team, a lot of teams with all the things that happen. You start off the game 0 for 13 from 3. You lose arguably your best, certainly your most impactful defender in terms of Malik Brown. You lose your best player in Cooper Flagg. And a lot of teams would have folded. You have this Georgia Tech team that has been playing really well as of late. They'd won 9 of their last 13 games, and they had a lot of momentum going into halftime. And for Duke to start the second half on a 12-0 run was incredible. And it says a lot about this team. It says a lot about Coach Shire. And it says a lot about how this team is not just one player or two players or an assistant coach. It is a complete team, and that's what we got throughout the second half. And it was led by Con Knipple, who did everything for Duke. He knocked down threes. He got to the free throw line. He got to the bucket. Especially, there was a stretch towards the end of the second half when Georgia Tech was playing Duncan Powell as their de facto 5-man. And Con Knipple took big advantage of that because he knew there was no Dongo in the game as a shot-blocking presence. And so he would drive to the bucket, and when they would send 2 to the ball, especially in those pick and rolls towards the end of the half, the second half, I should say, he was throwing the lob up to Malawach, especially, again, without Dongo in the game, who was awesome for Georgia Tech. There was nobody to contest Kaman Malawach at the rim. And look, Duke has had a number of great wins throughout this season. You go back, certainly the Auburn win is their biggest win of the season. I know I'm a little bit prisoner of the moment right now for sure. I might go out and argue this was their best win of the season, considering all that happened in the first half. To not have Cooper Flagg for the entirety of the second half and to be able to come back, take the lead, and not give it back and get this win over like Georgia Tech, I think was 17-15 coming into this game. Their record, they're a much better team than that record indicates based off the number of injuries that they had. And speaking of injuries, Saware took a tough elbow from Gangba, and he had to leave the game. So you had 3 players from the two teams combined leave this game due to injury. It was a war out there. But look, survive and advance, and that's all that matters at this point of the year. Now, before I go to the stats, there's no way I could do this video without talking about the injuries and their potential future ramifications here. So, first, let's talk about Malik Brown, because I think while Cooper Flagg's injury, he's the most important player to the team. You guys know that. I don't need to say that. But Malik Brown's injury, I think, is more concerning to me based off of how Cooper was able to come back, and sit on the bench. I'm really worried that could be it for Malik Brown to re-aggravate that shoulder injury in his second game back. I don't know. It seems really bad. He did not come back out to the bench in the second half, unlike Cooper, which is just, I think, is a really bad sign for him moving forward. I don't think there's any, I think it goes without saying, but there's no way Malik Brown is back for the ACC tournament, and I would highly doubt he's available for certainly the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. And maybe he's available for the second weekend, but I don't know. There's just not much time. Unfortunately, that's only 2 weeks. And hopefully, most optimistic scenario is he re-aggravated it, and it was really painful, but it's not something that is going to linger. That's my most optimistic take as of this moment. Now, Cooper Flagg, he comes down he gets that rebound. We've seen him sky for some impressive rebounds, and that was certainly one of them. And he lands, I think it was Dongo. He lands on Dongo's foot, rolls his left ankle, goes down. It seemed, well, one thing we know about Cooper, he's a really tough basketball player. He's a tough-minded individual. So for him to have to come out of the game was a concern. Then you see, he's got to be walked off the court by Begovic and Borden, or helped off the court, I should say, and he's just not putting any pressure on it. You see him go, in the wheelchair to get X-rays during the middle, during halftime, and it just seemed really bad. Now, the positive, he comes back out, he sits on the bench. The X-rays were negative. I don't think he plays tomorrow night against either Wake Forest or North Carolina. The one thing that does help is that since Duke is the number 1 seed, they will have, I guess, 26 hours or so until game time tomorrow night. So there is the really remote chance that he's available. But if there's any chance that they think he could re-aggravate it, there's no way he's going to play. And I don't think he will play tomorrow night. And then there was the moment when he was trying to celebrate with the team, and you could tell he was hopping on one leg. So I think there's a very remote possibility he's available, and I don't think it's worth it to even have him suit up tomorrow night. So the hope would be that he is ready to go for the NCAA tournament. If they would have lost this game, it would have been a complete nightmare afternoon. And I woke up and I was really excited. I had the opportunity to watch this game during a weekday at noon. Start off the game. You could tell Duke was a little bit rusty. Georgia Tech was more in flow after having played yesterday. And then it seemed like Duke, after the first 4 minutes, was settling in. That did not happen. Georgia Tech played really well in the first half. They had a solid lead going into, through the first 12 minutes, I should say. Multiple injuries. If Duke would have lost this game, it would have been really despondent, especially because I went back through last year, and since I think 2002, all of the teams that have won the NCAA tournament have won at least one game in their conference tournament, and that would have been a tough statistic that Duke would have had to disprove. Obviously, there would have been a little bit of a caveat for Duke with flag going down, but they won the game. And ultimately, at this point, we got to just hope that Cooper and Malik will be able to come back. It's horrible timing because we get, Proctor gets hurt. We get him back for the Florida State game. Malik, we think, he comes back for the North Carolina game, thinking that we're going into these tournaments healthy. And yes, we don't have Coach Lucas, but at least the team is healthy. And to have both of these guys go down the first half really hurt. All right, let's go into the stats for this game before we hit up the chat. So this was the Conca-Nipple game. This was his best game of his career. And again, because of the circumstances, he played 38 minutes. I don't think he sat in the second half. He finished with 28 points in part because towards the end of the game, they kept fouling. But Duke did a great job, led by Sion James, of making sure Conca-Nipple was the guy that Georgia Tech had to foul. It was 12 of 13 from the free throw line. He had 8 assists, including 3 alley-oops to Kama Malawach and 5 rebounds for Conca-Nipple. Proctor he just couldn't find his shot today. Thought his defense was good. He had 6 points on 2 of 11 shooting. Didn't make a 3. Had 5 rebounds and 3 assists for Duke. Kama Malawach had 14 points on 6 of 8 shooting and 9 rebounds. And I have to check. Let me check. How many blocks did Kama Malawach? He had 4 blocks in this game. He was just a defensive deterrent. Sion James only had 7 points, but all of his 3 buckets were exceptionally That's not a word. They were really well timed. That's what I'm trying to say here. 4 rebounds, 3 assists for Sion James, who played great defense. He had a nice tip-in bucket as well. Cooper, I mean, he didn't play well before he got hurt, but the one thing we know about Cooper is a lot of times when that has happened, his second half has been incredible, and he just didn't have the opportunity for that to happen today. Isaiah Evans, 17 minutes, 14 points. We needed that today, and it was great to have him play the way he did. Patrick Gangba, 7 points, some key buckets, especially at the end of the first half to get Duke some momentum towards the end of the first half. A couple rebounds and a big blocked shot for Patrick Gangba. And let's see here. Mason Gillis, he played 18 minutes, most of which in the second half, had 4 rebounds. He missed his 2 3-point shots. They were good looks. They just didn't go down. That is just how the game works sometimes. Caleb Foster, not nearly. I mean, that's being nice. He wasn't as good as he was against North Carolina. Wasn't as impactful in his limited minutes. And Malik Brown barely played, so no point really in going through his stats here. So, wrong screens there. All right, let's go to the chat. All right, so Joe M. A win is a win. Winning is a win, but this game felt awful. Couldn't agree more, Joe. This Georgia Tech team is really good, so we shouldn't be surprised by their fight. This game showed us how deep this team is. I feel awful because Malik is out, but we did have that huge Illinois win without him. Yeah, good point, Joe. We did win that big Illinois game without him, but I think also, and I don't think you would disagree with this either. We've definitely been at our best with Malik Brown this season, especially defensively. And that, I think, brings me to another point, which is, yes, Georgia Tech did finish with 39 points in this game, or in the second half, I should say, which was quite impressive. But they only had, let me check my notes here, I think it was, 12 points through basically the first 12 minutes of the second half. It was an inverse of the first half where Duke was down 26-12. Duke was up 28-12 through the first 12 minutes. Really impressive performance by Duke's defense through the first 12 minutes without, Malik Brown and Cooper Flagg. Arguably, their 2 best defensive players. I don't even know if that's really arguable. Ryan Jones. Really hope we shut Cooper down this weekend. Not worth it. Let him rest up for the bigger picture. I agree. I mean, I said earlier there's the remote chance based off the amount of time before the next game that he could be ready to go. And if that's the case, awesome. But if he's 99% ready to go and there's 1%, that he's not ready, don't play him. It's just not worth it. I agree, Ryan. Joe M. We might rely a lot more on Gillis going into the tournament now. Absolutely. He's been the guy who in shorter stretches throughout the season, whether it was the Louisville game, the Florida State game, I think North Carolina. I feel like there's another one I'm not remembering. He's been the guy to step up when Cooper hasn't been able to play, whether that was injury or foul trouble. And so I think, to your point, Joe, he's the guy who's got to, get more minutes. And it's going to be Con Knipple who's going to step up as the number 1 option. And as Ryan Jones says here, let Con get the keys and run the 2-man game with Man. That was cooking. It sure was. They found that rhythm towards the end of the second half of finding that lob play. They tried to go to it to start the game. I think it was Sion who found Malwatch, and it was a missed dunk. And if everything else didn't happen in this game, I would have highlighted that earlier. It was a crazy missed dunk. If he would have dunked it, it would have been, top 10 plays. Ryan Jones, Nice minutes from Slim as well. We can still win this tournament without Coop. Need him for the granddaddy, though. Yeah. It's going to be, no matter who wins, Wake Forest or North Carolina, and we'll have the preview for that game out later on tonight. No matter who wins, it's going to be really hard for Duke to beat either Wake Forest or North Carolina for a third time without Cooper Flagg. The Vine Branches. Agreed. Travis got to be more consistent, though. I'm not sure who Travis is. But if I'm not thinking of the right guy here, or if I'm just missing what you're saying there, let me know. Post another comment in the chat. All right, next up. Today's injuries will make for an interesting UNC game should the Tar Heels win today. Yeah, I think either way, whether it's North Carolina or Wake Forest, it's going to be a tough challenge, again, to beat them for the third time, probably without Cooper Flagg, and I think definitely without Malik Brown. Although I think we beat Wake Forest both times without Malik Brown. Joe M., Wake Forest game for Gillis. Wake Forest game 2 for Gillis. You're absolutely right. That was the game I wasn't thinking of. He was essential in that game for Duke, and hopefully he knows now he's probably gonna get 18 to 20 minutes instead of his 10 to 12 minutes, and so hopefully he can find a rhythm from 3 with his increased playing time, and we're gonna need him. We're gonna need everybody because it's gonna be Knippel with the keys, but Proctor and Sion are going to have to step up. Evans is going to get more shots. He's going to have to connect more often. And it's going to have to be a total team effort. Gangba's offense was awesome. And I think, that's something that Lawrence Freeman had mentioned, before, how we might be all right without Malik Brown because Gangba's offense could make up for Malik's defense, and today it was really important from Gangba with his offensive effort. The Vine Branches. I meant Tyrese. Oh, okay, yes, 100%, 100. I was trying to I feel like I know this team pretty well. I can't think of any Travises, but yeah, you're right. Tyrese has got to play better. He had a really good game against North Carolina after his first game back where he didn't have rhythm against Florida State. Yeah, you're right. He's got to be the second option for Duke moving forward. And he's got to just find a way to knock down his shots. Didn't happen for him today, but it's going to have to happen if Duke is going to continue to advance in the ACC tournament. Joe M., gold medal, Con, silver, Slim, bronze, Man. I think, all right, we'll go into the medals right now, and then I'll let you guys know who won the score contest that we have going on here. So, medals, sometimes it's hard to figure out who's the gold medal. Today, you could give Con 2 gold medals. He was so important for Duke down the stretch. Not only was he obviously leading us in scoring, he led us in assists. He had key rebounds. He did a good job defensively. He was just electric and steady and poised, and he just was able to play at his pace and find his way to the bucket a number of times, and just really did a really good job, as we've talked about, operating that 2-man game with Man, and he was awesome. Now, Joe, the one place I'll differ with you, I have Man as the silver, because when he was in the game, Georgia Tech, just their offense changed. And especially in the second half, when he got more involved with Duke's offense with that 2-man game with Knippel. But I don't disagree with you on the 3 guys. I've got the bronze as Slim. His shot making was really important for Duke today without Cooper Flagg. And even with Cooper Flag, he hit, his couple of threes in the first half when Duke couldn't hit a shot. And so it was really important for Isaiah Evans. He's going to have to hit shots. We talked about the Vine Branches, talked about Proctor. I totally agree. I think the three pronged attack for Duke moving forward in the ACC tournament is going to be Kahn, Proctor, and Evans. It's those three guys, and the order will change depending on, I shouldn't even say that. Kahn is going to be number one. That's not going to change, but it might change in terms of how many points guys score. But Kahn's got the keys. And then it's Proctor, and then it's going to be Evans we're going to need to find him his shots, and we're going to need to set him up, with those flare screens that we like to do with, typically it's been Brown, but Gangba and Gillis have shown that they can set the screen as well. Joe M., Big Pat was great. His physicality is great when Malawach goes out. Yeah, that's true. When Malawach's physicality at times has waned, I felt like he did a better job in the second half. He started off the game great. He had a couple of blocks early, and then he picked up his second foul. And after his first foul, I should say, I felt like it wasn't quite the same. But the second half, I thought he was awesome. And Joe also says, I agree with you. Malawach had some big blocks on defense, stopping Georgia Tech's offense. Huge dunks, too. He was great. He is just great tonight. I'm having a tough time, guys. I apologize. Today, it's still 2:40. Felt like a really long day with all of the injuries and the way Duke couldn't make a shot. It went from I was really excited to watch this game to a nightmare to what a resilient win, all in the span of, 2 hours. So that's Duke basketball. Now, for our score predictions, Lando Man was the closest. And he nailed Duke's score, 78 points for Duke, and he had it 78-59. It was a bit closer, but he gets the win, which means we now have, let's see, let me count out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 7 winners so far, but Wes Midnight Assassin is the only 2-time winner. And everyone who has one win includes Ed Sessoms, Mr. Custy, Z Kex, Lawrence Freeman, Macaroni Daddy, Pay the Piper, and now Landman. So as long as the season keeps going, for every Duke game, make sure to drop in your score predictions because we're going to be sending out a piece of Duke swag at the end of this year to the winner. So with that being said, please subscribe to the channel, drop a like, leave a comment in the chat, and share this with your basketball friends. We will see you guys. I'll be with JD later tonight for the Duke preview, and we'll see who that game is going to be against. But just very happy to be moving on after everything that happened in the first half, and just happy to be continuing the ACC tournament with you guys. So be on the lookout for the preview of the next game later tonight, and I'll see you guys later today.